During the Super Nintendo era, RPGs were king. Games such as Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy III, now known as Final Fantasy VI, and Super Mario RPG captivated thousands of gamers around the world. These games both performed well at the time, and they are still highly regarded today. When we talk about games that flew under the radar upon release, Earthbound is typically the center of discussion. And rightfully so. Earthbound is an incredibly charming and heartfelt game, and it's one of my personal favorites of all time. But with that said, there is another Super Nintendo RPG which was effectively ignored on release. Unlike Earthbound, unfortunately, this game did not develop a massive following over the years. The game I am referring to is, as the title of this video suggests, Lufia 2: Rise of the Sinistrals. Lufia 2 is the second game of the Lufia series, although it is a prequel to the first one, so you can come into this one completely blind. I have fond memories of playing this game, alongside some frustrating ones. The cartridge I had as a kid was faulty, and it would wipe save data if the game was so much as looked at incorrectly. As a result, I can't count the number of times I had to restart this game before even making it halfway. However, even with several resets, I was not deterred from replaying this game non-stop, hoping that this attempt would be the one which would finally push me through to the final credits. While the cartridge I had was faulty, something about the game itself kept me coming back to try again, and again, and again, and several more times. What kept me coming back? Well, let's talk about it. The game opens with a foreboding music track, and we see a fortress on an island in the distance. Inside, we see a blue-haired woman by the name of Aram conversing with her master Eric. He asks Aram if humans or Sinistrals should rule. The Sinistrals are godlike beings who oversee the world. Their rule may be coming to an end, however, as Eric reveals that judgment time with the dual blade has come. Eric asks Aram to leave, and she flies away as a red ball of light. This scene sets up a confrontation between humans and the Sinistrals. And of course, Eric is the master, so he must play a large role in that story. Surely he is the final boss who we defeat to reclaim the Earth, right? Right? So it turns out that Eric actually never shows up on screen again for the rest of the game. He is mentioned by other characters, but he doesn't play an active role in the story. So why does the game insist on opening the game with a cutscene featuring him in what seems to be a very important role? After the title of the game appears, the core cast of characters is revealed in small scenes showcasing their personalities. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I had no idea these scenes existed until I replayed the game for this video. I always assumed the title reveal was the end of the intro and I would press start to skip to the main menu. These scenes are a nice teaser for the game, but you can skip them without missing out on much. After naming our hero, we press start and the game begins. Maxim is returning from a day of monster hunting. He turns in his hunt to the shopkeeper, Tia, who is also a childhood friend. In this conversation, an important dynamic is revealed between the two. Tia wants Maxim to live an ordinary life, while Maxim has no intention of giving up his sword. This dynamic will come into play time and time again in interesting ways as the story progresses. After offending Tia, you can go buy items or equipment from her before leaving the shop. In town, you can talk to this old man who tells you that he will show Maxim his secret to dungeon fighting sometime soon. As you try to leave town, the old man stops you and says now is a good time to show you the secret techniques for fighting in dungeons. He was not lying. When you arrive at the dungeon, you are introduced to several game mechanics. Firstly, in dungeons, enemies can be seen on the map. Battles start whenever you make contact with an enemy sprite. You can get behind the enemy for a preemptive strike, but if they get behind you, they get to attack first. Lufia 2 is not the first game to have a system like this, though with that said, it just might handle it the best. Monsters only move when you do, so throughout the game you encounter several different monsters and many of them have different walking patterns. Some are quick, they move 2 steps every time you take a step. Some monsters will avoid you at all costs. while some will rush you as soon as you cross their line of sight. When you enter a room and see a new enemy, you begin to wonder what they plan to do when you approach them. Sometimes you will try to walk by just for an enemy to rush out of nowhere, and they will gain an advantage in battle. Throughout the game, you get dungeon items. In this tutorial dungeon, you obtain arrows, for example. If you shoot an enemy with an arrow, they are immobilized for a few steps, and you can walk around them to avoid battle. Overall, I love this mechanic. If you are prepared, you can stop an enemy in its tracks as it rushes you down, and then you can sneak around to gain a preemptive strike, or you can just simply walk past it and avoid a battle altogether. Dungeon items are not only for dealing with enemies, however. In this room, the old man suggests you shoot an arrow at an unreachable switch. Doing so repairs a bridge so you can progress through the dungeon. Later, you learn that you can swing your blade to cut grass and vines, revealing hidden switches or pathways. And so, this lays the foundation for what might be the best quality of Lufia 2, the puzzle solving. The dungeons in Lufia 2 are very reminiscent of the Zelda series. You will be solving puzzles throughout the game, and most of these puzzles are very well designed. There are a couple of head scratchers in here. I hate you so much. But for the most part, the puzzles in here are great. When I first played this game, I remember asking my family to come help me solve puzzles I struggled with. We would stare at these colored blocks forever, trying to find the proper method for progression. On this replay of the game, I was able to breeze through many of the puzzles, but that's only because I struggled with them so much in previous playthroughs that the solutions are ingrained in my mind. The dungeons are easily a highlight of this game, and that's a good thing, because you will spend a ton of time in them. After completing the tutorial dungeon, you return to El Cid to have dinner with Tia. If it wasn't clear before, this scene demonstrates that Tia has strong feelings for Maxim, although it's not obvious how he feels. As mentioned before, Tia simply does not understand why Maxim feels the need to fight. While Maxim has simply always been a warrior. It's who he is, and in his mind there is no need nor desire to change that. Maxim and Tia's dynamic is a great and well-written part of the story, but I will wait until later to discuss this. After leaving Tia's shop, a short cutscene plays out in which someone reveals that monsters have appeared in the cave to the north, blocking the route to Sundleton. Sounds like a job for the resident monster hunter. We go take care of the monsters in the dungeon and retrieve the key to open the path to Sundleton. After retrieving the key, Maxim begins to wonder why monster behavior seems to be changing. Upon having this thought, a mysterious green-haired woman enters the room and asks if Maxim wants to know why. This woman reveals that she can foresee destiny. She tells Maxim that the change in monsters is due to the red ball of light which was seen flying through the sky, and that this event will eventually lead to catastrophe. However, she reveals that Maxim has the power to confront this evil, and that it's his destiny to go on a journey to meet others who have the same power to change the future. Before leaving, the woman reveals her name to be Iris, stating that if Maxim chooses to pursue his destiny, they will meet again. Now, if you're thinking that this plot feels very generic, you would be right. It's almost a joke how many RPGs follow the setup of Chosen One embarks on an epic quest to find comrades and save the world. Overall, Lufia 2's plot structure is quite simple, and to a degree, formulaic. However, the plot manages to be very interesting and engaging throughout, primarily due to the characters around which this story is centered. Now that his destiny has been revealed, Maxim has to choose whether he will ignore the message Iris has just delivered, or if he will answer Destiny's call. I wonder what he will choose. After leaving the cave and arriving in Sundleton, the general structure of this game is revealed. Go to town, talk to NPCs, sleep at the inn, buy new equipment and spells, save at church, go to dungeon, repeat. Oftentimes, you'll spend about 5 minutes between dungeons because there really isn't that much to do in most of the towns in the game. As a result, this game can feel a little bit repetitive at times. When you first arrive at a new town, your first instinct is typically to talk to the townspeople. The NPCs in this game are essentially just there to point the player to the next dungeon. For the most part, these don't feel like real people with their own lives, interests, and struggles. This is definitely a sign of the times in which this game was made. When I first played Lufia 2, NPCs were so helpful to me because I refused to look up walkthroughs. I believe that using a walkthrough is cheating, and as silly as this may sound, I was terrified that my parents would ground me if they caught me cheating in a video game. In some games, this would lead to me banging my head against a wall as I explored aimlessly with no idea of what to do next. Luckily, Lufia 2 makes it very clear where to go and what to do, and I appreciate that. Once you have talked to the proper NPCs and you know what your objective is, you can stock up on items and equipment. When buying equipment, you generally just buy whatever makes number big. However, Lufia 2 has a unique mechanic with equipment, the IP system. Most of the equipment in the game has IP abilities, which are special moves that you can use in battle. Some swords, for example, have special attacks which allow you to hit multiple enemies, hit enemies more than once, or land elemental attacks to exploit weaknesses. Different armor has defensive or healing abilities, and so on. When buying equipment, be sure to press the X button to see the attached IP ability. In fact, let's talk about the X button in this game. The X button opens the menu, but it also allows you to see item, spell, and equipment descriptions. I feel the need to tell you that specifically because I did not realize this until I replayed the game to make this video. Prior to making this video, I have played Lufia 2 5 or 6 times and I never knew that. As a result, most of my playthroughs would have me trying individual IP abilities or spells just to see what it did. As far as I know, the game does not tell you how to access this information. Okay, quick note, it turns out that the information for this is in the instruction manual for the game. Oops. Moving on, I need to talk about the shops in this game, specifically the item shops. The item economy is not balanced properly at all. Within the first hour, you can buy 99 potions for a very small amount of gold, which means you can recover freely between battles with no repercussions. In the early days of RPGs, the challenge was in managing resources in dungeons. Should I use MP to heal myself, or use an item? If I use MP, I may not have enough MP to use offensive spells against the boss, but at the same time, I'm running low on items. That struggle is completely absent here because the potions are so cheap. As a result, you can save all of your MP for battles and you never have to worry about running low on healing items. In general, you will never find yourself struggling with money at all. If you don't run from every single battle in the game, you will probably have enough money to buy new equipment and spells for your party, as well as stock up on potions at each town. The economy drastically lowers the difficulty unless, of course, you decide to embark on a challenge run. After you have restocked items, equipment, and spells, you can save at a church. The church provides 3 services: lifting curses, reviving party members, and saving the game. After saving, you have completed the typical town loop, which you will do several times throughout the game. Now, with an objective in mind and 99 potions in your bag, you are ready to leave town. Between towns and dungeons, you traverse the world map. Unlike the dungeons, there are random encounters here. The encounter rate is not ridiculously high, but there is a good chance you will fight a handful of battles between points of interest on the map. Like many RPGs of the time, Lufia 2's world map is very segmented. For 95% of the game, progression is very linear. As you progress through the game, you will obtain access to a boat, submarine, and then finally, an airship. Each vehicle opens the world up slightly more until the airship basically gives you free reign over the entire world map. Exploration of the map is not just limited to the final act, however, as Lufia 2 offers moments throughout the game where your curiosity is rewarded. For example, early in the game, rather than taking the path through the shrine to the next town, you can walk around the mountains and find an odd-looking tree sprite. Stepping onto that tree reveals a secret location called Fumi Woods. In this forest, you can recruit this beautiful creature into your party. Fumi is a capsule monster, which is basically this game's version of Pokemon. There are a few spots on the world map that lead to similar secrets, but not too many. As mentioned, you do obtain a submarine in this game, and I feel that more secrets could have been hidden underwater. I think there are about 3 or 4 places in the ocean you can visit with your submarine, and only one is considered optional. You will visit the others through the natural progression of the story. Exploring with the submarine is pretty underwhelming, and I would have liked to see more done with the underwater sections. Now it's time to discuss the dungeons, arguably Lufia 2's greatest strength. These dungeons are incredible, and that is in large part thanks to its Zelda inspirations. I mean, the game is not hiding it. As the game continues, you add several dungeon items to your arsenal to go along with the arrows we obtain in the tutorial dungeon. Bombs, a hookshot, fire arrows, and a hookshot with a brick. As these items are added, the puzzles become more and more complex, but importantly, never overwhelming. You always have an idea of what tool needs to be used where, but determining exactly how you need to use the tool is the challenge. Once you get the hook, arrows are kinda rendered useless, but other items still find their places to shine. The arrow and hook can be used to press switches which are far away, bombs can be used to destroy broken walls or floors, revealing hidden pathways. The hook can be attached to columns or pillars and pull you across gaps in the floor. The hammer can destroy rocks, push pillars from a distance, and also destroy broken walls. The fire arrow can burn all grass in its path when fired, which is used for some very fun and refreshing puzzles that I don't hate with every fiber of my being. For the most part, the developers did a great job of integrating the dungeon items into the puzzle-solving experience. The sheer variety of puzzles in this game is staggering. In one dungeon, you will be playing a matching game while a horde of monsters get closer with each mistake, while in another, you will be playing a slide puzzle to obtain treasure. The dungeons in which these puzzles take place all follow a very similar pattern. Somewhere in the dungeon you need to find a key which unlocks a door at the deepest part of the dungeon and leads to a boss fight. The developers did a great job of pacing the dungeons, and it never feels like you're in one dungeon for very long. In games like this, I love to explore the entirety of the dungeon. I want to collect all the treasure possible before moving on. If you're mainlining the objective with no regard for extra treasure, you will spend a lot less time in the dungeons, but you will also probably be underleveled for some boss fights. If you fully complete each dungeon and fight most of the battles along the way, you will probably never need to grind. Speaking of battles, the battle system in this game is solid. When a battle begins, you are given 3 options: trade places, attack, and flee. Trading places allow you to change the positioning of your party. Members in the front row do more damage than those in the back, but they also take more damage. This is a nice idea, but when you have your final party makeup by the end of the game, it's very obvious who should be in your front row and who should be in the back. When you are surprised by an enemy, however, the party's front and back rows are flipped, so you can adjust when those battles begin. That said, engaging with this mechanic is not that necessary unless you are fighting battles underleveled. I never found myself switching party members around. When selecting the attack option, you reveal the full battle menu, and you have 5 options to choose from. You can attack, use an item, cast a spell, defend, or use an IP ability. Around the battle menu are the characters with their HP, MP, and IP fully displayed. The IP system does a lot of heavy lifting here to boost what is otherwise a very standard system. As mentioned before, different sets of equipment possess different abilities to be used in battle. Some of these abilities are extremely valuable, which makes the choice to change your equipment very difficult. Another unique addition to battles is the capsule monster system. In this game, you can recruit 7 different capsule monsters throughout the world to assist you in battle. In battle, they act on their own accord. You cannot issue them direct commands, so you just sit there and you kind of hope that they will do something other than just inflict 20 damage with a regular attack on an enemy with 5000 HP. That said, when my monster actually uses a special move and inflicts heavy damage, I can't help but cheer to myself. It's a nice addition to the battles. The thing I really love about capsule monsters is the process of discovering them and then helping them grow. After you recruit a monster, you can feed them equipment you don't use anymore to help them evolve. When you open the menu to feed, they will tell you an item that they crave, but honestly, you can ignore that. In fact, sometimes you will feed them exactly what they ask for and they will say it's gross. Each capsule monster has 5 forms, and seeing what they evolve into is just so much fun. My favorite monster in the game is Fumi, which is the first capsule monster you gain access to. I love how he goes from a pile of toothpaste to the 9-tailed fox for his master evolution. Talk about character development. Anyway, I want to go back to discussing the battle system. I have 2 issues. The first is that the battles can feel very slow at times, especially if you are fighting a horde of strong enemies. Spell animations can take a while to cast, and if you are facing 4 enemies that all like to cast spells, you will be sitting there for a while. No one will shame you for using a fast forward button to get through some of these battles. My other and primary issue is that most of the battles in the game are simply too easy. I know, this is said about many RPGs, but it's true again here. You can get through most battles by mashing the A button. Even enemy encounters in the late game can be brute forced in this method, although you may find yourself taking more damage in those fights. But again, this is where the item economy is a problem. I was never worried about taking damage in these fights because I knew I had an inventory full of healing items that would mitigate any damage I received in battle. Because of this, there really isn't much difficulty in the game outside of some boss fights. You will likely start every single battle with nearly full HP, which makes regular enemy encounters completely trivial. Some of the bosses here are another story, however. If you are leveling yourself properly throughout the game, you will still struggle to see a game over, but these battles do require you to engage more with the system, which is appreciated. There are some strong boss fights, but by far, the highlights of this game are the Sinistrals. As soon as a battle with the Sinistral opens up, you can feel the energy as this incredible battle theme kicks in. It's just so good. The atmosphere of the Sinistral battles never fail to get me hyped. To complement the music, the Sinistrals themselves are imposing. Just look how massive their sprite is in comparison to the party. It gives the battles this feeling that you are truly matched up against a supernatural entity. You just can't help but feel that yes, this battle may actually decide the fate of the world. During these fights, I would always find myself pausing just to enjoy the atmosphere the game created. And of course, this amazing drop. Incredible. To be honest, the actual fights themselves are not insanely difficult. Again, if you are properly leveled, you will probably have no issues with any fights as you progress through the story. That said, the epic, adrenaline-fueled fights with the Sinistrals are just so good that the difficulty is the furthest thing from my mind. And that covers the gameplay loop. All in all, it's great. I love exploring new dungeons and seeing what new puzzles await. The battles are easy but enjoyable, and the boss fights, especially those with the Sinistrals, are spectacular. The towns don't have much to offer aside from some notable exceptions I will discuss soon. How soon, you ask? Well, to be honest, I'm not really sure. Before I start, I should say I generally don't pursue side content in games. I don't get stressed when I see 99 uncompleted side quests. That just doesn't affect me, and it's something I don't really prioritize. If I'm having a lot of fun with the game, I will play the side content because I don't want the experience to end. Lufia 2 is an experience I didn't want to end, and as a result, I engaged quite a bit with the side content. The primary side quest is collecting the dragon eggs. In some dungeons throughout the game, solving a particularly tricky puzzle would lead you to a chest containing a dragon egg. When you read the description, the game tells you that collecting 8 of these will allow you to have a wish granted by the egg dragon. Collecting dragon items to have a wish granted. Why am I having deja vu right now? The puzzles which hide the eggs can be quite challenging and are some of the most memorable puzzles in the game. Once you collect all of the eggs, you can bring them to the egg dragon, who gives you 4 options for your wish. A set of stat boosting potions, a set of fruits used to evolve your capsule monsters, an ancient shield, and a set of super rings which can be equipped. Personally, I chose the stat boosting potions. After you collect the 8 dragon eggs and make your wish, they are spread out back into the world and you have to find them again to have another wish granted. Okay, great, but wouldn't I just go back to the chest they were in? What's different? Well, this is where the egg dragon tells you to prepare for a headache. After the first round of collecting is over, the eggs are released back into the world where they can appear in any previously opened chest in the entire game. That means you retread through old dungeons again, looking through every single treasure location until you find the eggs. Now, you can buy an item to speed this process along a bit. You can buy a jewel sonar, and when you use this, it will ping if there is a treasure left in the dungeon. If there are 3 unopened chests in a dungeon, for example, it will ping 3 times. While this is great and all, you still have to travel to each dungeon and ring the sonar. If nothing pings back, you move on to the next dungeon and repeat. If you are lucky, multiple eggs will be sent to the same dungeon, but if you're not, eggs will be spread out over 8 dungeons, forcing you to, once again, complete some of the more annoying puzzles. Wait, is that... No. When you are collecting dragon eggs for the first time, it's fun, because each egg is cleverly hidden. After that, it's an exercise of insanity as you scour the world map only to realize that the egg was at the bottom of a castle this entire time instead of a dungeon. It's frustrating and monotonous. The thing is, if you want to see all this game has to offer, you need to do this multiple times. 4 times to be exact. Doing so unlocks a super boss fight against the egg dragon himself. So, you have to go through this frustrating process of using the jewel sonar at every single dungeon in the game, desperately searching for these stupid dragon eggs. The boss fight against the egg dragon is the toughest battle in the game. He hits your party for heavy damage nearly every turn, and he has a very large pool of HP. The dragon can be tough, but upon defeating him, you receive a ring which boosts all of your stats to max, alongside a sword which is pretty solid with a fantastic IP ability. I am glad that the reward for this side quest is actually worth it, but that doesn't excuse the quest for being 70% frustrating. However, if you can beat the egg dragon, you really don't need your stats to be any better, as the dragon is, as I mentioned, the hardest boss in the game. After beating him once, you can challenge him at any time for another fight. You can do this if you want to grind him for more experience. That said, the battle takes so long that once is enough. You're better off grinding elsewhere. Wait, what's that? You can just give the dragon a potion at the beginning of the fight which overflows his HP and sets it to a very small number, and you can beat him in just one hit? Oh, wow. Okay then. Well, every game is bound to have a bug or two. At least this game is otherwise a pretty clean and bug-free experience. Okay, Lufia 2 is riddled with bugs, primarily the English release. I'm not sure how a localization team could break a game so badly, but they pretty much found every way possible. I will provide more details later, but just know, this egg dragon glitch is only the tip of a very large iceberg. Back to the optional content of Lufia 2, one of my favorite places in this game as a kid was a casino. Here you can play blackjack, poker, slots, and my personal favorite, action bingo. In this one, you can rotate sections of the board to try and make a bingo before the allotted number of balls have been drawn. The casino offers a fun distraction from the battling and puzzle solving of the main game, and playing these minigames during my formative years helped turn me into a gambling addict in my adult life. In all seriousness, these games are fun, and the casino offers prizes you can purchase with coins you earn specifically from winning games in the casino. You can purchase coins at the counter with gold, but they are quite pricey. This is great because it forces you to actually play the games to earn the rewards. That said, you will need to spend a lot of time playing these games if you want to buy the very powerful sword sold at the counter. I suggest playing the slots in the VIP room with the fast forward button. It will still take a while, but you will get there eventually. So, with capsule monsters, dragon eggs, and casino minigames, Lufia 2 offers plenty of extra content to engage with outside of the main story. That said, there is another side quest which honestly could be an entire game in its own right. And if you've played Lufia 2 before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Ancient Cave is an optional dungeon which consists of 99 randomly generated floors. When you enter the cave, your levels, skills, items, and equipment are completely reset. You are required to equip yourself with treasures found in the cave. Anything you find in red chests will disappear if you leave the Ancient Cave, while blue chests give items you can keep and bring into the Ancient Cave with you in subsequent runs. In other words, yes, Lufia 2 includes a roguelike minigame. When you open Steam today, you can find an abundance of roguelikes, but at the time of Lufia 2's release, this was basically unheard of. This is the kind of thing that adds endless replayability. If it's good, that is. So, is the Ancient Cave any good? Well, yes. 100 times yes. It's incredible. Two of my primary issues with Lufia 2's RPG gameplay are resolved here: the item economy and the difficulty of 95% of the battles. You cannot buy items in the Ancient Cave. Instead, you are forced to find any healing items you may need in chests. And since the floors are all randomly generated, you have no idea when you will find another healing item. Suddenly, MP is a scarce resource that you have to balance between healing and offensive spells. Or, you may have to ignore it altogether for a few battles because you currently have no items to replenish your MP. Without the broken item economy, battles suddenly have a lot more weight to them because you are not guaranteed a full heal after each battle. To make it through the Ancient Cave, you will need to battle. A lot. To conquer some of the later floors, your party absolutely needs to be at a high level. So, if you run away from battles early to conserve resources, you are setting yourself up for failure. Therefore, you actually need to engage with each enemy encounter to ensure that you are completing battles efficiently while taking as little damage as possible. I cannot stress how much more exciting and challenging this makes the battle system. Exploring the cave is a blast as well. While the cave lacks the tight design of the dungeons throughout the main story, the randomly generated layout manages to provide some fun surprises, and every now and then, you will walk into a room and your heart drops as you see 6 or 7 treasure chests surrounded by a horde of enemies, which once again leads to rewarding decision making. Your party isn't in the best shape, but what if one of those chests has an important item, weapon, or spell that could turn this run around? Well, many times you will open a chest to an underwhelming item. Every now and then you will find a weapon, for example, which will completely change the trajectory of your run, and it feels amazing. The enemies in this cave are no joke either. While you will see familiar hordes as you make your way down, eventually you will run into enemies which are not present anywhere else in the game, and the developers did not hold anything back here. The enemy counters in the later floors of the ancient cave are truly difficult, and that makes conquering the cave all that much more rewarding. Prior to this playthrough, I had never beaten the ancient cave before. I would always die before even making it close to the final floor. As a kid, this didn't stop me from trying over and over, but I could just never do it. In my later playthroughs of the game, I was usually focused on the dungeons and the story beats, and I didn't engage with the optional content. For this playthrough, however, I was determined to make it through. As I made attempts, I quickly determined what spells and equipment I should be looking for. For example, you pretty much can't beat the ancient cave without finding the absorb spell, which allows you to steal MP from an enemy. This allows you to use spells more frequently, which will be absolutely necessary during the encounters on the final floors. A weapon you basically can't do without, especially if you want to beat the final boss of this dungeon, is the Decker Blade. The IP ability lets you cut an enemy's health in half. This is extremely important because the final boss of the ancient cave is not a typical boss. To some, this may be disappointing, but personally, I found the final floor and boss to be great. Well, except for the fact that the floor is a glitched out mess. I mean, what am I even looking at here? Luckily, all you have to do is walk forward to meet the final boss, the Master Jelly. I actually laughed out loud when I got here, and when the boss fight kicked off, I laughed even harder. This fight mimics the Sinistral fights. You have the giant enemy sprite, the incredible music. I love it. I love it when games have a sense of humor like this, especially in the optional content. As I said, this boss is unique. The Master Jelly will actually not attack you. Instead, he fully restores your HP and MP. So how is this a challenge? Well, the challenge comes with how quickly you need to beat him. In the first turn, he restores your HP. In the second turn, he restores your MP. In the third turn, he doesn't do anything. However, if you are unable to kill him by the end of the third turn, he runs away, and you can't rematch him. You are forced to leave the ancient cave, re-enter, and complete all 99 floors again for another attempt at beating him, which is brutal. This is why the Decker Blade is so important. There are other weapons with IP abilities that deal damage based on percentage of the enemy's health, and those are extremely valuable for this fight. The fight with the Master Jelly is essentially proving that, over the course of the 99 floor dungeon, you built a powerful and well-equipped party. Except, there is another way to win. The battle is programmed in such a way that if you cannot complete the battle within 3 turns, you lose. There is more than one way to complete a battle. Yes, you can try to kill the Master Jelly, or, in a shocking turn of events, you can turn your party against each other, leaving no survivors. Whether you defeat the Master Jelly or slaughter your entire party, the Master Jelly concedes that you are, indeed, the world's best warrior, and he gives you a key to the treasures hidden behind the front desk. The treasures are honestly just fine. There's nothing crazy here like a ring that boosts all of your stats to the max or anything like that. As strange as this may sound, the feeling of finally conquering the ancient cave was a reward in and of itself to me. Honestly, you could spend hours in the ancient cave. You could do speed runs, challenge runs, or just try to do a normal run and beat it again. Each run is unique and will provide different challenges based on your luck with treasure chests. After completing Lufia 2 twice, you unlock Gift Mode. This allows you to play the ancient cave with any party makeup you want. You can even try a solo run. All in all, the ancient cave is incredible. I can't say enough about how great it is, and that is coming from someone who does not really play a lot of roguelikes. If you are a fan of roguelikes but are uninterested in the rest of the game, I recommend downloading a save which allows you to start at the ancient cave and then just have fun. So, we have covered a majority of what Lufia 2 has to offer. As it stands right now, we have a very solid game with great moments. The puzzle solving and the ancient cave both stand out, and while there are some flaws, there are no glaring issues that we can really hold against this game. In the North American version of Lufia 2, there are an abundance of bugs and translation errors, far too many to cover here. That said, this would not be a proper look at this game if I did not at least acknowledge and talk about some of these problems. Like I said, there are minor translation errors all over the game. For example, when you open the warp menu to travel to other locations, the incredibly important to the plot town of Parcelite is spelled incorrectly as Persolite. When you enter the capsule monster cave near Parcelite with the submarine, the cave names are absolute gibberish. When playing Action Bingo, the game asks you if you want to try for a ball of chintz. All of that is relatively harmless, but then you have issues like the final floor of the ancient cave. But hey, at least that's at the end of a difficult optional dungeon. That's not something that a large percentage of players will see, right? Maybe I could see how that would slip past playtesting and be released. That doesn't make it acceptable, but I could at least fathom a world where that happens. What I cannot fathom, however, is how an extremely important story moment looks like this. This is a moment that every single person who beats the main story of Lufia 2 will see, and it boggles my mind how a company could release the game in this state. I'm not exaggerating about the importance of this scene either. Remember how, in the intro cutscene of the game, Eric mentions that the dual blade is resonating? This scene is the first one in which the dual blade is seen on screen aside from that intro. It's a pivotal face-off between Maxim and a Sinistral, and immediately, you are pulled out of it because of the unforgivable bugginess. Aside from that, there are ways to break the game immediately, which again, are exploits only present in the North American version. One glitch is the infamous level 0 glitch, which sets a character's level to 0 but gives them max stats. The worst part is that this glitch is not difficult to do, at all. All you have to do is level up a character to level 2, and make sure they are at max HP. Once you do that, go into the menu, click config, scroll down the music, press left once, and then exit the menu. When you open the menu, you should see your character is dead. Save the game, restart, and load the save, and congratulations, you've broken the game. You will notice that the game will run considerably slower as it is trying to calculate large numbers all the time, but you now have a maxed out character. The last glitch I'm going to talk about is one that lets you beat the game in under a minute due to a similar exploit of the config menu. As of writing this, the 80% speedrun world record for Lufia 2 is 51 seconds, and once again, this is not all that difficult to do. I was able to follow a guide and beat the game using this method in just a couple minutes. The wildest part about these glitches is that most of them are only present in the North American version of the game. I'm not going to pretend to be a game developer, nor will I pretend to understand the inner workings of a localization team. That said, how did this happen? I genuinely want to know this. Other countries had no problems localizing the game to their language, so clearly the problem does not lie with the original version of the game. Something happened in the process of localizing this game to North America, and as a result, the game was broken in several ways. I tried looking into this, but I was unsuccessful in finding anything, but if you're watching and you have an idea, please let me know in the comments below. With a quick Google search, you can find a patch to fix these issues alongside some others I haven't mentioned. For this playthrough, I wanted to play through the original version so I could showcase some of these issues, but it's up to you if you want to play with the patch or not. I would be lying if I said it wasn't fun to break the game and complete it in 2 minutes, but the fact that this game was released in this state is unacceptable. Luckily, you can still complete the game in spite of these bugs. I've had no issues with replays over the years, but I always roll my eyes when the scene with the dual blade finally appears. With that addressed, we can move on to the real reason that Lufia 2 has stuck with me over the years. Yes, I love the ancient cave, I love the dungeons, but the thing I love the most is the story and the characters. From this point forward, I'm going to spoil everything. And so, if you want to play this for yourself, I want to thank you for listening up to this point, but I strongly recommend that you go and experience this on your own before hearing what I have to say. With the spoiler warning out of the way, I feel like it's time. There's no need to wait any longer. Let's get into the story of Lufia 2. Okay, let's do a quick recap from the beginning of the video. Maxim defeats monsters in a cave to open the passageway between towns and meets a mysterious woman named Iris. Iris tells Maxim that he is the chosen one and he must journey to meet others who can help to save humanity. Of course, Maxim chooses to pursue his destiny to learn the truth. The next stop on our journey is Sundleton. Upon entering town, an earthquake immediately takes place. After talking to the townspeople, you learn that some believe a giant fish is causing earthquakes in the nearby cave, and so, of course, we journey to knock some sense into the fish. After doing so and returning to Sundleton, you are told that a woman came looking for you. You return to Lake Cave and find none other than Tia being surrounded by monsters. After saving her, she reveals that she had a feeling that Maxim was leaving and she couldn't bear it, so she followed. On one hand, this seems like a typical gut feeling that someone would have in her position. On the other hand, this could suggest that Tia is connected to Maxim in some way and is able to sense his presence and energy. I only say this after having replayed the game several times, as this comes up later. This could be intentional, or I could be reading too much into it here. I will let you be the judge. Anyway, Tia convinces Maxim to let her travel with him, and the two continue on to Elund's kingdom. After walking directly into the throne room with no resistance at all, a cutscene plays out in which two people come in and suggest that the crown has been stolen and replaced with an imitation. The duo takes the crown away for inspection but are stopped on the way out by a guard who does not recognize them. The duo ditches their disguises to reveal that they are none other than the legendary thieves Bart and Bertie. These two are here to provide comic relief to the story. They aren't used a ton, but that makes it more effective when they do show up, and they get genuine laughs out of me. When the guards come to retrieve the crown, they pull out a literal bomb, planning to use it as a distraction as they make their escape. Much to everyone's horror, Bart counts down to the bomb's detonation. 3, 2, 1. Even though they hurt themselves in their confusion, Bart and Bertie manage to steal the crown while everyone just kinda sits and watches. Therefore, we must take matters into our own hands. We follow the two into the sewers and fall right into their dastardly trap. Eventually, Maxim and Tia continue to the town of Tanville, where they meet a new party member, Guy. Guy immediately invites Maxim to join him in a training session. Unfortunately, they are interrupted by an unknown figure who suddenly appears, flanked by monsters. Maxim, Tia, and Guy quickly dispatch the monsters, but the man kidnaps Guy's sister Hilda and flees to the nearest tower, giving us a reason to go and complete another dungeon. So that's what we do. After solving some puzzles, our party arrives at the top of the tower to confront the mysterious man. Behind the man, we see Hilda, but more importantly, treasure. After defeating him, the day is not saved, however, as he decides to take the tower down with him. The door locks, leaving the party trapped inside. When all hope seems lost, the door opens, and Iris enters the room. Without saying a word, she warps everyone to Tanville, but she is nowhere to be seen. Wait a minute. What about the treasure? Yeah, it turns out you have to retread through the entire dungeon to get the treasure at the back, which is slightly annoying. It also doesn't really make any sense because the whole reason we were teleported was because this tower was self-destructing or something. I guess the game just kind of forgot about that. Guy asks about Iris, and Maxim informs Guy of the destiny of which she spoke. Guy is interested in joining Maxim on his quest, but he is unsure if he can leave his girlfriend behind. Right on schedule, we meet said girlfriend, Jessie. She immediately understands that he desires to go, and she encourages him to do this, but not before making him promise to return to her. This scene actually contrasts the relationship of Guy and Jessie to that of Maxim and Tia. Guy and Jessie actually acknowledge their relationship as being romantic, and it's very clear that they have strong feelings for one another. Tia says straight out to Maxim that she is not a waiting around type of woman. And in the bro move of the century, Guy steps in and saves Maxim from having to respond to that. Guy joins the party and the three leave town to continue their adventure. If it hasn't been made clear by this point, Lufia 2 takes a very episodic approach to storytelling. While there is an overarching plot of Maxim traveling the world to defeat the Sinistrals, there are several smaller plot lines for basically each town you visit. Due to this game's focus on its puzzle-solving dungeons, the developers wanted to include a lot of dungeons, which means we needed a lot of reasons to go to a lot of dungeons. Because of this, we have a lot of mini-arcs along the way, as we can't just have a Sinistral show up at every dungeon every single time. Most of these episodes are solid, and if you ever run into one you truly don't like, it'll be over quickly anyway. Since I enjoy the intermediate gameplay, I don't mind the episodic structure. In fact, I enjoy solving problems for towns as we progress through the larger plot. This also helps paint Maxim and his group as noble heroes, which we want to root for. No problem is too small for them. So yeah, I like the episodic structure, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to focus on the overall plot and the important character details rather than going through every minute detail of these episodes, which honestly don't contribute that much to the overall narrative. After completing the next episode, Maxim gives Tia a brooch. Of course, Tia is overjoyed as Maxim is finally showing her some sort of affection. As she is jumping and dancing away, Maxim confides to Guy that he doesn't know if Tia coming with him will make her happy, which again, this adds fuel to the fire that maybe Tia and Maxim just aren't meant to be together. In many RPGs with a romantic subplot, the protagonist will fall in love with the first female party member, and there are a handful of examples where that person happens to be a childhood friend of the protagonist. Lufia 2 starts off his story, and it's easy to believe that the story will follow a similar structure, especially as Maxim and Tia share dinner within the first 20 minutes of the game. However, the game is trying to make it obvious in these early hours that Maxim and Tia are fundamentally different people. One desires to settle down and start a family, while the other yearns for life on the battlefield. When first playing this game, I fully expected to watch Maxim eventually come around and fall in love with Tia, because that's just how this story kind of functions. The oblivious guy eventually comes to see his childhood friend in a new light, and they fall in love, and they live happily ever after. Lufia 2 chooses not to tell that story, and it elevates this game to a whole new level. In the next town of Parcelite, we are introduced to a strong female warrior by the name of Salon. She is comforting a girl who is being bullied. Salon says that girls should save their tears, and that if she cries all the time, the bullies will continue to harass her. Following her to the castle, we see her in a sparring session, and it's clear that she is strong and respected by her kingdom. Maxim, in particular, is completely awestruck. In the castle, the party meets with the king, who reveals that your reputation has spread. Because of this, the king asks Maxim, Guy, and Tia to accompany his best soldier, Salon, to the North Fortress to recover a sword. Salon is upset, suggesting that she does not need the help of a traveler, but the king insists. She joins your party, but makes it clear that she does not trust Maxim yet. Maxim makes it clear that he wants to earn her trust, and she responds by saying that strength is not the method for doing so. This is an incredible introduction to Salon as a character. She's quickly established to be strong and someone who values her independence. Salon has no desire to bond with outsiders, and so, when Maxim is so eager, we as players begin to get an idea of where the story is going. The game has been trying to tell us over and over that Maxim and Tia are not meant to be together, and now we are seeing why that foundation has been laid. There is clearly someone else who is better suited to be Maxim's partner, and the way this is shown over the next couple of hours is fantastic. Very quickly, Maxim and Salon begin to bond and learn to trust each other. At the end of the next dungeon is a monster who splits into two, and Salon comes up with a strategy that allows the party to slay the monster. Following the battle, Maxim and Salon get caught up in their own conversation, even moving into the next room by themselves. Even though we are looking at 16-bit character sprites here and text bubbles, you can feel the sadness in Guy's voice when he tries to address Tia. Clearly, he knows how Tia feels about Maxim, and he also recognizes what is rapidly developing between Maxim and Salon. Tia says she's not ready to give up yet, and they join up with the others. Upon returning to Parcelite, we hear of a Sinistral for the first time. A messenger arrives and informs the king that a nearby town of Gordovan has been completely destroyed by a stranger. The king asks Salon to go check the situation, and Maxim offers to accompany her. Yet again, Salon is hesitant to accept his help, but Maxim explains that this may be a part of the destiny which he was warned about by Iris. The party makes their way to Gordovan to find a town that is completely destroyed. The ground is in upheaval, the houses are leveled, and the people are completely fine? I guess they must have all been gone when this happened. Lucky for them. We learn that the man responsible for this disaster is in a nearby tower, so we follow him there to finally confront this evil entity we have been hearing about since the beginning. This could be what stands between humanity and prosperity. After climbing the tower, we come face to face with the first Sinistral, Gades, the Master of Destruction. Our first Sinistral boss fight begins, and it's just as epic as I described in the battle system section of this video. The music is incredible, Gades' sprite is huge and menacing, and finally, we can see the power of a Sinistral firsthand. And my goodness, do we see his power. Gades quickly wipes the party in what is meant to be a losing battle. It is possible to win this battle, but you will need to be very overleveled in order to even have a chance. If you win, Gades still destroys the party in the cutscene following the battle, so the story remains unchanged. I know some people aren't a huge fan of scripted losses in RPGs, but I think it works excellently here. As I mentioned earlier, you are not going to game over very much in this game as long as you are not running away from every single battle. Therefore, most bosses and enemies are a breeze. So when you finally step up against Gades, who has the power to completely level a village, it feels right that his power dwarfs yours. If you have played many RPGs, you will quickly realize that this battle is a scripted loss, as Gades basically spams a party-damaging move over and over, at a point of the game where your healing options are very limited. That said, it still works for me. We shouldn't be able to oppose Gades yet, and I appreciate the party having a setback. Following the battle, Iris appears yet again and reveals that Guy and Salon are both destined to join Maxim on his journey. Once again, Tia is left as an outsider. Since she has met Salon, Tia has had to watch the man she loves quickly fall for another woman. Tia has always felt incompatible with Maxim's life, which is why she has always wanted him to put his way of life away and live an ordinary life with her. Due to her feelings, she has chosen to ignore the differences between her and Maxim, but they are now being shown on full display, and it's painful for her. As the party begins to leave, Tia noticeably hangs back, lost in thought. Upon Maxim's prompting, she quickly catches up with everyone. In this era of video games, your imagination has to fill in a lot of blanks. We don't get to see facial expressions, and we don't get to hear the tone in which lines are meant to be delivered. Lufia 2 does a great job of scripting scenes in such a way that I feel like the blanks are easy to fill. Watching Tia in these scenes is painful, and you know exactly what she's feeling. The whole world is telling her it's not meant to be, and at this point in the story, she is finally beginning to realize that. Unfortunately for Tia, this won't get any less painful anytime soon. Guy has to leave the party because his sister's condition is worsened, so Maxim, Tia, and Salon continue their journey knowing that Guy will eventually return. The three must travel through a cave to the next town, and in this cave, we see a great cutscene which perfectly showcases the current relationship between Maxim, Tia, and Salon. The three enter a room which Salon notes feels suspiciously empty. Tia wanders around the room looking for answers and falls through the floor. Salon says they need to move quickly, but Maxim pauses, saying he can't find the stairs to go down. Salon says, "Shut up, bro, ain't nobody got time for that," and she jumps down after Tia, arriving just in time to save her from a goblin. Salon does say that she was careless to jump down without thinking, and both her and Maxim agree that they should be more careful going forward. Luckily, no one was hurt this time. The problem is that the party once again finds themselves in a room with no exit. Salon decides to explore the room and look for a door, and this time she falls through the ground. This time Maxim shows no hesitation, immediately wanting to go after her. You might argue that this scene is a bit on the nose, and you would be right. Personally, this scene always stands out to me in my playthroughs because again, we are seeing the childhood friend turned lover trope being turned on its head. It hurts to see Tia watch this happen right in front of her, and we are left wondering where she fits into this journey, especially as Iris did not mention her playing a role in Maxim's destiny. For now, we will have to wait for answers for that question as the party makes their way to the Bound Kingdom and is introduced to a straight-up GOAT character, Decker. It's made pretty clear in his introduction that he is ridiculously strong, but also, well, stupid. This is a very common archetype for a character, but that's not a negative. You simply can't help but love this guy. He's just so charming. Alongside Decker, we are introduced to a villain named Idara. Watching Idara become increasingly frustrated with Decker's level of intelligence is absolute gold. Decker and Idara share some hilarious dialogue before Decker showcases his strength by fighting off a horde of monsters by himself, showing off a special trick of his called the Blastmaster. Seriously, this guy's awesome. Idara flees to a nearby dungeon to regroup. The Prince of Bound Kingdom rushes after Idara to prove his worth, but it's clear he is not nearly strong enough for this battle. The king asks Decker to go take care of the situation, and the party follows after him. Not a lot of note happens here. We save the prince from Idara, and Decker saves the day. Upon returning to the castle, we are told that Gades confronted the king and told him that he would destroy Bound Kingdom. Now, why he didn't just, do that is a great question. Gades also said he will sink Sime Island, which is where Parcelite is. Maxim convinces Tia and Salon to return to Parcelite to warn the people of the impending danger. Luckily, Guy returns to help Maxim and Decker in the fight against Gades. Quick side note, Guy and Decker's relationship in this game is amazing. If I wasn't such a fan of Maxim and Salon's dynamic, the bromance would be an easy number one. They are constantly clashing as they are both very similar characters, and in fact, they are essentially the same gameplay-wise. Both are very strong physical attackers who cannot use magic. This makes the party makeup of Maxim, Guy, and Decker interesting because now Maxim has to play the role of healer for the group, which is a nice change of pace for the gameplay. Anyway, back to the story. The three dudes go to confront Gades at the top of the East Tower. Gades says evil bad guy stuff about how humans should bow down to him. Otherwise, he will continue to destroy towns around the world until the humans finally understand their place. Of course, we refuse to do that, and we defeat Gades, who is much weaker in this fight than he was in the last one. While I like the scripted loss to Gades earlier, it doesn't really feel like anything has changed between that fight and this one. Yes, we gained Decker, but we also lost Tia and Salon. The party didn't undergo any meaningful growth or obtain any newfound strength. Somehow, we were just able to stand up to Gades this time. A slight nitpick, sure, but this is a flaw in the pacing and power scaling of the game. After defeating Gades, Maxim is separated from the rest of the party as Gades threatens to sink Parcelite as a final act of terror. At this moment, Salon and Tia arrive, stating that they were both worried about Maxim. That said, there's not much they can do aside from distract Maxim from possibly stopping the island from sinking. While Tia fights this notion, Salon immediately decides to put her faith in Maxim, stating that she will be waiting for his return in Parcelite, the same town which will sink if he fails. Of course, being the hero he is, Maxim manages to stop Parcelite from sinking, but nearly at the cost of his life. Once again, however, he is saved by Iris and warped to Parcelite. Salon immediately rushes to his side, delivering the news that everyone is safe. What follows is a touching scene where Salon is brought to tears by the fact that Maxim returned safely to her. They embrace, and it's clear that they have fully come to accept and even love each other in the short time since they met. When the camera pans from these two, we see Tia walking out of town before being stopped by Decker, who says he thought she loved Maxim. Tia explains that yes, she does, but she also understands that she cannot be a part of his life given the path he has chosen. They are fundamentally incompatible with each other, and Tia is finally showing acceptance in that fact. Another important aspect of this scene is that Tia mentions that she hasn't cried since she was a child, and Maxim told her to stop crying or she would continue to be teased. Not only does this mirror the advice Salon provided to a child when she was introduced, it also sets the stage for an important moment later in the game. Tia states that for whatever reason, she just can't cry anymore, even when she really wants to. Decker manages to comfort Tia, but she knows that she doesn't belong with the group anymore, and so, she leaves. What was surprising to me as a kid is that she is never seen again until the end of the game. I appreciate that they did not keep her around and make her fall in love with Decker or something like that. The way the game depicts Tia is so painful and real. The people we love do not always love us back, and watching Tia reject that notion over and over again until finally accepting it is wonderful and relatable storytelling. Following Tia's departure, we have a time skip which shows Maxim and Salon getting married and living a happy life together, enjoying the peace they have brought to the world. And this time they have a child named Jaros, and all is well. The section of the game which begins when Salon is introduced and ends after Gades is defeated is the strongest in the game. If Final Fantasy X didn't exist, the romantic subplot involving Maxim, Salon, and Tia might be my favorite of any RPG, and I love watching it unfold as Maxim and Salon both find an incredible partner who mirrors them completely, while Tia watches painfully from the side as she loses a relationship she has held dear her entire life. It's painful, touching, relatable, and most of all, human. After the time skip, Jaros is kidnapped by Idara, forcing Maxim and Salon to return to action to save him. Iris helps them when they confront Idara, and after he flees, she explains that Maxim's destiny has changed. He must fight again. Salon is determined to accompany him and fight for their future together, and so, they leave Jaros with Salon's aunt and embark on another adventure. Quickly, they reunite with Guy and Decker and press on. They obtain access to a ship made of wood from the legendary Phantom Tree, and they learn that Idara is attempting to sacrifice women as rituals to revive Gades. After foiling his plan and saving the women, they chase Idara to a nearby shrine. There, Idara reveals that his master Eamon has essentially disowned him since Maxim and the party have foiled his plans repeatedly. Eamon is another of the four Sinistral. Though Idara has nowhere to go, he is determined to kill Maxim and the party as revenge for ruining his life. Of course, we have Decker, so he stands no chance. Unfortunately, in a last-ditch effort, Idara begins to destroy the shrine with everyone trapped inside, and Decker sacrifices himself to save the group, but not before telling Idara, "I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!" Maxim, Salon, and Guy are forced to continue on without the Super Saiyan God, but when one party member leaves, another joins. We meet Lexus, who is a brilliant inventor. He has come up with a revolutionary invention called the Engine, which will allow for a boat to move on its own. Luckily for us, we have a boat that is ready to be adorned with such a contraption. Several sets of shenanigans ensue, but eventually, we reunite Lexus with a fellow scientist, Dr. Kirmo. At this point in the story, we need to go under the sea for our next objective. Of course, we need a submarine to do this. Luckily, Dr. Kirmo has been working on that very idea, and our ship is the perfect model to be converted. Unfortunately, the plans for the submarine are stolen by an elven child who is upset at Dr. Kirmo and his laboratory for not being eco-friendly. When Lexus realizes this, he leaves the party to work permanently at Dr. Kirmo's lab and ensure that the environment is not harmed anymore. This leaves room for our final party member and the fourth chosen one, Artea. When we meet Artea, it's revealed that a Sinistral is attacking his village. Maxim and the party accompany him back home to learn that an elven woman, Karen, has been kidnapped in order to boost the power of Eamon at a nearby shrine. We chase after Eamon to stop him from gaining even more power, but unfortunately, Karen uses all of her power to chase Eamon away, dying in the process. Following Karen's death, Artea agrees to join Maxim in his journey to defeat the Sinistrals, and finally, we have our true party assembled. Now you may have noticed that we have flown through the second half of the game compared to the details I provided for the first half. That's because while there are a lot of fun character moments, none are quite as important to the characters and overall plot like the Maxim, Tia, and Salon subplot of the first half. That said, there is one specific scene I want to talk about before we enter the final act of the game. The party meets with Iris, who essentially wants Maxim and Salon to prove their bond to her. Iris does not seem to understand nor believe in the bond that they share. To prove this, the party goes to the top of the Tower of Truth, where somehow they will be able to prove their love. At the top of the tower is a mirror, and for whatever reason, if both Maxim and Salon's reflection appear in the mirror, that means they have a true bond. To this point in the game, Maxim and Salon have shown time and time again that they depend on each other, but Iris has sown seeds of doubt, even if just a little. However, before looking at the mirror, Maxim and Salon reaffirm their love to each other and decide not to look because it doesn't matter what a mirror shows. They know how they feel, and there's no reason to believe otherwise. Maxim and Salon are shown to have, in my opinion, a fairly realistic depiction of a happy relationship. All couples go through their ups and downs, and that includes these two. Even though Iris managed to make them doubt each other for a short while, eventually they decided to find comfort and truth in each other rather than the surrounding world. A nice touch for the player is that even though Maxim and Salon do not look in the mirror, monsters attack the room, forcing their backs against it. And what do we see when that happens? We see both of their reflections, confirming to the player that yes, Maxim and Salon share a bond that is both powerful and true. The party has to fight off the monsters, and in the battle, the mirror is shattered. That said, it's clear to both Guy and Artea that Maxim and Salon are meant to be together, and they know it too. After the party leaves, Iris appears to repair the mirror. Once it's complete, it's revealed that Iris was actually an imposter all along. Iris is actually Aram, a Sinistral. After this reveal, Maxim and the party learn of the location of the MacGuffin to end all MacGuffins, the Dual Blade, a legendary weapon capable of boosting one's energy which would give Maxim power on the level of the Sinistrals. The party tracks the Dual Blade down to a shrine whose location is known only by a mermaid colony under the sea. It's there that the true reality of the situation is revealed. The North American port of this game is broken. I've already talked about this, so I'll leave it there, but come on. Really? It's here that the Dual Blade reveals itself to Maxim and seems to be calling out to him. The biggest, baddest Sinistral Deos is revealed, and he wants the Dual Blade to himself. For some reason, the Dual Blade disappears, which delights Deos, for that means Maxim is not worthy. Deos warps the party to the surface, and suddenly, the sky gets dark as an island appears in the sky. It's Deos, and he is ready to make his claim on the planet. He destroys the town which he warped Maxim and the party to, taunting them to come up there and face him if they want their revenge. Of course, we have no way of getting up there, so we must go talk to Lexus to unlock one of everyone's favorite RPG staples, the airship. After completing a quest to unlock the airship, Maxim, Salon, Guy, and Artea are ready to claim the Dual Blade and stand up to the Sinistrals to save humanity. The party flies to the Zelda Triforce Islands, where it's revealed that the party must bring 3 sorceresses to the top of 3 towers, one on each island. At the top of the towers, they will cast a spell to hold Doom Island in place so Maxim and the party can launch an attack. After climbing all 3 towers, the Dual Blade appears. Deos shows up and lays waste to the party. Maxim, however, gets up and shows the will and resilience necessary to carry on. Doing so proves him worthy of the Dual Blade, which infuriates Deos. With Dual Blade in hand, Maxim feels his strength amplify, which prompts Deos to retreat to Doom Island. With the sorcerers at the top of each tower, they can now hold Doom Island in place. The Sinistrals try to prevent this clash from taking place by damaging our ship so we can no longer fly. Therefore, the party returns to Lexus for repairs, which gives us some quiet time for a touching cutscene. Maxim asks to talk to Salon in private, and he tries to convince her to stay behind, but this time, Salon absolutely will not allow it. She refuses to let Maxim undergo this without her. He concedes, and the two make a promise to return home to their child after all this is over. Nearby, Guy and Artea are listening in on the conversation as they are both worried for Maxim and Salon. To lighten the mood, Guy says they'll throw a huge party in Tanville after they defeat the Sinistrals. The party returns inside and sees that Lexus has finished repairs. Before they can take off, however, a messenger arrives and says the Sinistrals are making one final effort to stop our party from reaching Doom Island. They are sending an army of monsters to attack. Everyone steps outside and sees the town overrun with powerful creatures. All hope seems lost, but then... That's right, baby. The GOAT is back. The party is stunned, but Decker tells them to get to the Sinistrals while he handles the fight on the ground. Guy and Decker share a fun moment where Guy suggests he is the only one capable of getting rid of Decker, and yeah, these two are great. With Decker leading the fight on the ground, the party launches into the air and heads directly for Doom Island. The Sinistrals manage to shoot the airship, but it's able to withstand the blast just enough to crash directly into the Fortress of Doom. The screen goes pitch black, and Maxim checks to make sure everyone is okay. Eventually, Maxim asks Salon to cast the spell Light to dispel the darkness. Suddenly, the fortress is revealed, and then the best song of the game properly comes in to set the mood. The party pushes through to the center of the fortress. Before making it to Deos, we have to fight Gades, Aemon, and then Aram. When the party confronts her, no one acknowledges that she is Iris, but that will come later. Importantly, Aram says that as long as she remains alive, the rest of the Sinistrals can be revived. So, the party has to destroy her completely to rid the world of this threat. The party manages to take her down, but she is not dead, as we will see later. Finally, after having felled the other 3 Sinistrals, we come face to face with Deos for the final confrontation of the game. Prior to the battle, Deos reveals that Eric stands above the 4 Sinistrals, which if you remember, Eric is the dude from the intro cutscene to the game. There was no reason for Deos to mention him here, and I'm not sure why he did. Eric does not do anything in this story, and he could be removed entirely and nothing would change. This is unfortunate, but whatever. After winning the final boss fight, the other 3 Sinistrals reappear to attempt one final time to destroy Maxim and the party. In order to fight back, Maxim, Salon, Guy, and Artea must channel their energy together and use it to overwhelm the Sinistrals. As they are doing this, it's clear that Salon is struggling with the amount of power she is giving, but Maxim encourages everyone, saying they only need one final push to win. In the final power struggle, Deos utters the single greatest line in all of fiction, as he shouts, "You little hoochies!" The Chosen 4 combine their power for a final push, which succeeds in destroying the Sinistrals, although it knocks our party in various directions. Maxim gets up first, realizing that they have done it. He has fulfilled the destiny foreseen by Iris long ago, and their work is finally done. Maxim goes to check on the party, but when he gets to Salon, he realizes that something is wrong. He says they can finally return home, but Salon says she won't be able to return home with him. The final blast of energy did too much damage to her and she collapses to the ground, her final words being, "I wish I could go with you and hold our son again." Before we have time to process the loss, the fortress begins to shake and Maxim is separated from Guy and Artea. Maxim instructs them to leave him behind and spread the message to the world that peace is finally returning. Guy and Artea warp to safety, leaving Maxim with Salon. And finally, for the first time on screen, Maxim tells Salon that he loves her. He always has, and he always will. But suddenly, the fortress stops shaking. An image of Deos appears, telling Maxim that he will drop Doom Island onto Parcelite as his final act of terror. Yes, this is exactly the same thing that Gades tried to do. These dudes are sore losers. Deos disappears, leaving Maxim hopeless on what to do next before Iris appears one final time to talk to Maxim. In this conversation, he recognizes that she is Aram, the Sinistral of Death. He begs her to help him, but she says it's against her nature to save the lives of many. But of course, as Maxim points out, that is Aram, and in this moment, she has taken the appearance of Iris. The Iris that Maxim knows, the one that saved him time and time again, she would want to save people. Maxim is able to get through to her and she opens a pathway, telling Maxim that if he can destroy the mystic stones at the bottom of the fortress, he can change the path of the island's descent. Another incredible song plays, emphasizing the gravity of the situation. In his final moments of life, Maxim has the opportunity to save his son. Quickly, Maxim makes his way through the twisting paths, destroying the mystic stones one by one. By the third one, he does not have enough energy to give. Suddenly, the dual blade appears in front of Maxim, giving him enough power to destroy the last stone and save Parcelite. With the stone destroyed, Maxim states that he is tired and is simply ready to be reunited with Salon again. A flash of light makes its way down and Salon appears in front of Maxim, telling him it's time for them to leave this place and go be with their son. It's in this moment that Maxim, our hero, dies, but his energy reunites with Salon's, and the two fly away from the fortress. A touching song begins to play as Maxim and Salon fly over the important locations we visited on this long journey. We see different scenes of these characters planning to attend the party Guy talked about with Artea before the battle. These scenes are lovely, and each one has a painful sting behind the happiness as many characters talk about Maxim and Salon as if they will be joining them. These scenes never fail to make me tear up, but the one that sends me over the edge is when Maxim and Salon fly over the town of Elcid, Maxim's hometown and the place we started this journey. We fade in and see Tia, who we haven't seen since she left the party. A friend comes to her side and she notices that Tia is crying. She notes that she hasn't cried since she was a child. She isn't exactly sure why she's crying, but the tears just won't seem to stop. As the player, we know exactly why. It's been clear from the very beginning of this game that Tia is deeply in love with Maxim, and she is connected so deeply with him that she senses the moment when he dies to save the world. This moment is so beautiful and bittersweet that I find it hard to put words to just how moving it is. Lastly, Maxim and Salon fly over to Parcelite, finally reuniting with their son, Jaros. While Salon's aunt is holding him, he begins to cry out for his mama, which, come on game, you didn't have to put me through this. The final shot of the game we see is Maxim and Salon hovering above Parcelite before flying away to spend eternity together. Roll credits. Here's the thing, a story is only as good as its ending, and Lufia 2 absolutely crushes it in this department. The final hour of this game is genuinely incredible. The fights against the Sinistrals are epic and truly give this feeling that the world is hanging in the balance. The deaths of both Maxim and Salon is heartbreaking, and yet we see how many people they saved and all the lives they affected along their journey. The music brilliantly captures the bittersweet feeling which comes along with a heroic sacrifice. I have played Lufia 2 several times, and the ending never fails to make me emotional. It is a perfect ending for the story that was presented in this game. We tend to hold games we played as kids very close to our heart. Nostalgia can mask flaws and help us enjoy games that we otherwise wouldn't enjoy if we played them for the first time as adults. Going into this project, I recognized that Lufia 2 was such a game for me. I love this game, and part of me was afraid to take an objective look at it as I was worried that it wouldn't hold up under a critical lens. But while it certainly has its flaws, Lufia 2's strengths are so incredibly strong that the weaknesses seem insignificant in comparison. If you have not played this game, you are truly missing out. After replaying it for this video, I cannot recommend this game enough. This game deserves to stand alongside the other greats of the Super Nintendo era, and it's a shame that it never got the credit it deserved. The puzzle-solving dungeons combined with a very touching story create an experience that will stick with you long after the credits roll. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I put a lot of work into this video, and I am very proud of how it turned out. With that said, I think I'm finally ready to step away from this project. I hope to see you again soon, but in the meantime, I think I'll be doing some more runs in the Ancient Cave. See you later.